and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Point with Z. Thank you for tuning in. As promised in last week's episode, we will continue to talk about Iran this week, about the history of the country and the trajectory that it got itself on, which led to the situation that the country is in today. Now, last week we talked about the Muslim conquest of Persia and how that conquest managed to kind of convert the country into a center for scholarly learnings, mainly for Sunni Islam as part of the wider Islamic empire or nation at the time. Now, fast forward a few years, you got between the years 1300 and the years 1500, you got the empire called the Timurid Empire. And that empire was an empire that was Persian/Turkic in origin. It was comprised of Turkic peoples moving from Central Asia, and at the same time, it comprised Persian peoples that were Turkified of some sorts. And then you got that exchange of Turkic/Persian identity, which created this whole new nation. And the Timurids ruled Persia, or wider Persia, or grander Persia, parts of the Middle East. They ruled parts of Iraq, or most of Iraq. They ruled Afghanistan, parts of Pakistan, parts of Anatolia in Turkey, and they ruled a really wide region, and the eastern part of Arabia as well. So they ruled all of that region, and then in the years 1500 and something, we got the decline of the Timurid Empire. We got the rise in power of local rulers in Persia, and you got this power vacuum and these many Sufi orders propping up, and so many religious movements propping up in Persia. And Sufi orders are orders of Sunni Islamic mysticism. So Sufism is a form of Islamic or Sunni Islamic mysticism. It kind of studies or attempts to study the nature of God, the relationship of man and God, and how we could get closer to the divine. It's a very mystic movement that was very powerful at the time, and is still present today in parts of the Middle East, mainly in Turkey and the Levant region of the Middle East. It's a very spiritual movement, and if you know anything about the Muslim scholar Rumi, who's got very famous poets, he's got immense contributions to the world culture and Islamic culture. He was a Sufi or a Sufi cleric or a Sufi scholar from one of the Sufi orders. Anyway, around that time, we got the Ismail the Safavid, a local leader in the Azerbaijan region of northern Iran, and not to be confused by Azerbaijan, the country. It's a region within Iran. And you got Ismail the Safavid, and he was called Ismail the Safavid because he was a member of the Safaviya, or Safawiya in Arabic, Sufi order, which was a Sunni Sufi order. And he was the direct descendant of the founder of the Sufi order. You got Ismail the Safavid rising to power in Azerbaijan. And as he rose to power, he entered Tabriz, the capital of the Azerbaijan region of Iran, and he declared himself the Shah of the Azerbaijan region, or the king or ruler of the Azerbaijan region, and the Shahanshah of Persia or Iran. So the king of kings of Iran, so to speak. And these are Persian terms, so apologies if I kind of mispronounce them. I'm not Persian, so I apologize for that. Anyway, so you got the Ismail Shah, the Safavid, rising up in power. What he faced was a lot of resistance from different parts of the country. His rule was contained to the Azerbaijan region. And within a span of 10 years, he kind of expanded his rule and cemented his rule over all of Persia, including modern-day Iran. And he rule the country as the ultimate ruler. Now, Ismail Shah founded the Safavid dynasty, which was arguably the greatest dynasty in modern Iranian or Persian history after the Muslim conquest. What he did when he founded that new dynasty, he faced a lot of trouble in the form of competition with the Ottoman Empire on one end, the great Ottoman Turkic Empire, and then the Uzbek kind of Turkic people to the northeast. So he's facing two great powers. You got the Uzbek Khanates of Turkic people, and you got the Ottoman Empire to the west in Anatolia, kind of neighboring Persia, and both exerting their power. And knowing that Persia is multi-ethnic, so a lot of those nations had connections to Persia somehow, and they were both Turkic, but Persia was also Turkic Persian. It was a mix. So Ismail the Safavid was of mixed heritage. He was partly from Georgia, parts of Armenia, Anatolia, also the Azerbaijan region. So he's got mixed heritage. His origins are mixed. He was a Turkified Persian. He was also partly Kurdish. So a lot of Turkified Persian tribes. But anyway, he faced a lot of trouble because the Muslim world back then, and in Persia or Iran back then, was Sunni. It was a Sunni center of scholarly learning, and ironically, the Ottoman Turks sent their scholars to learn in Iran back then because there was not enough Islamic schools in Anatolia. So they sent their scholars to the great scholarly centers of Persia or Iran at the time because it was such a powerful center for Islamic learning in the wider Islamic empire. So there was a lot of interference and a lot of intermingling, and there was a lot of power exerted by these two enemies. So what he decided to do all of a sudden is convert Iran or Persia into the Twelver Shia sect of Islam. So he decided that Persia is no longer Sunni. It's different from all of its neighbors. It's Twelver Shia, and that's how it's going to be. And he led this massive campaign of conversion, forced conversion in Iran or Persia, and it was really unparalleled on so many levels. His hatred of Sunni Islam was unparalleled. He was the most successful at hating Sunnis since the fall of the Fatimid Empire in Northern Africa, which was another Shia empire. He hated Sunnis so much. He led a massive forced conversion campaign between the 16th and 18th century. So it took him 2 centuries to kind of 2 to 3 centuries. It took around 400 years to kind of fully convert Iran to Shiism. And what he did is, and this is very, very surprising, and this is the interesting part in all of this, is there were no Shia in Iran back then. There were some Shia movements here and there that were kind of successful in carving out a small community here and there within the country, but there were no Shia texts. There was one, just for context, there was one Shia text in all of Iran. So his decision to convert the country was highly unorthodox, and it was difficult to implement. So what he did is he reached out to other parts of the Muslim Empire, mainly in the Arab world, in southern Lebanon, in parts of Syria, and in southern Iraq, where there are small but powerful and very well knowledgeable and highly invested Shia communities and Shia clerics. And he invited them to come to Iran or Persia to teach the kind of, or preach kind of that version of Islam or that version of the religion. And what happened is he forced all of the Sunni scholars to either convert, exile, or die. And he forced that conversion upon the people, and it took him around 300 or 400 years to fully convert Persia. And he was the one who introduced that huge schism between Sunnis and Shia. So a lot of the Sunni and Shia communities of today don't understand that this schism between the two sects was actually all motivated by a political decision to kind of separate Iran from its surroundings so that the ruler could exert full power over the country. And that the ruler grew up as a Sufi Sunni kind of scholar to a certain extent, and he was not Shia himself until he converted the entire country. And that's what they don't understand. And this is a tragedy, and I'm sorry I'm laughing about this, because a lot of the infighting is and a lot of the bloodshed between the two sects is actually, well, the result of that decision, that political decision. And not a lot of people realize it. But anyway, bottom line, it was then when Ismail Shah introduced the ritual cursing of the first Muslim caliphs, first three Muslim caliphs, which is a subject of a lot of contention and a lot of tension and hatred between the two communities. So the Sunnis hate that the Shia cursed the first three caliphs. And he also introduced a public holiday, a yearly public holiday, where specifically one of the caliphs, Omar, was cursed. And Omar was the first caliph who actually led the invasion or the conquest of Persia back then and converted it to Islam. So he had a lot of hatred for the first three caliphs or rulers of the early Muslim nation or empire. And he institutionalized all of that ritual cursing, which is a problem to this day because it's an area of a lot of tension and friction between the communities, and it leads to a lot of unfortunate events between the two. So that political reason is what led us to the situation we are in the Middle East today, where the two communities of Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims are always in conflict, and where Iran or Persia is now a powerhouse of Shia Islam and is alienated from all of its surroundings. So it has bad relationships with most of its surroundings because most of the surrounding nations are Sunni Muslim nations. And there's this big schism between the Iranian people and the peoples of the rest of the Middle East. Not so much in some parts of the Middle East, but in other parts it's much more apparent, much more delineated between the two communities. And this provided Persia with a very unique identity that kind of gave it a certain flavor within the Middle East, but it also created that animosity between it and its neighboring countries that the current Iranian regime is taking advantage of to further Iranian influence in the region. Now, we'll talk about that next week. So please tune in to next week's episode. I'd like to leave it here and wish you a great week ahead. And next week, we'll discuss more of the modern history of Iran and the modern Islamic Iranian Republic and the modern the modern Iranian state, and the situation that it is in today. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.